Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Awalia Fadia Yuniar from class 4 IC Management, and I'm in group 1 for research methodology course. And in here I want to explain about hypothesis and data analysis. So, a hypothesis is a statement that we are trying to prove or disprove. It is used to express the relationship between variables and whether this relationship is significant. It is specific and offers a prediction on the results of your research question. The sole purpose of a hypothesis is to predict your paper's findings, data, and conclusion. It comes from a place of curiosity and intuition. When you write a hypothesis, you're essentially making an educated guess based on scientific prejudice and evidence, which is further proven or disproven through the scientific method. The reason for undertaking research is to observe a specific phenomenon. A hypothesis, therefore, lays out what the said phenomenon is, and it does so through two variables, an independent and dependent variable. The independent variable is the cause behind the observation, while the dependent variable is the effect of the cause. A good example of this is mixing red and blue forms purple. In this hypothesis, mixing red and blue is the independent variable as you're combining the two colors at your own will. The formation of purple is the dependent variable, as in this case, it is conditional to the independent variable. So this is the types of hypothesis, but some would stand by the notion that there are only two types of hypothesis. The first one is a null hypothesis and an alternative hypothesis. While that may have some truth to it, it would be better to fully distinguish the most common forms as these terms come up so often, which might leave you out of context. Apart from null and alternative, there are complex, simple, directional, non-directional, statistical, and associative and causal hypotheses. The first type of hypothesis is null hypothesis. A null hypothesis proposes no relationship between two variables. Denoted by hypothesis, it is a negative statement like attending physiotherapy sessions does not affect athletes' on-field performance. The other claims physiotherapy sessions have no effect on on-field performance. Even if there is, it's only a coincidence. The second one is alternative hypothesis. Considered to be the opposite of a null hypothesis, an alternative hypothesis is denoted as H1 or HA. It explicitly states that the dependent variable affects the independent variable. A good alternative hypothesis example is attending physiotherapy sessions improve athletes' on-field performance. The alternative hypothesis further branches into directional and non-directional. Directional hypothesis is a hypothesis that states the result would be either positive or negative. It is called directional hypothesis. But non-directional hypothesis is a non-directional hypothesis only claims an effect on the dependent variable. It does not clarify whether the result will be positive or negative. Number 3 is simple hypothesis. A simple hypothesis is a statement made to reflect the relation between exactly two variables, one independent and one dependent. Consider the example, smoking is a prominent cause of lung cancer. The dependent variable lung cancer is dependent on independent variable smoking. The next is number 4, complex hypothesis. In contrast to simple hypothesis, a complex hypothesis implies the relationship between multiple independent and dependent variables. For instance, individuals who eat more fruits tend to have higher immunity, lesser cholesterol, and high metabolism. The independent variable is eating more fruits, while the dependent variables are higher immunity, lesser cholesterol, and high metabolism. The number 5 is associative and causal hypothesis. Associative and causal hypotheses don't exhibit how many variables there will be. They define the relationship between the variables. In an associative hypothesis, changing any one variable, dependent or independent, affects others. In a causal hypothesis, the independent variable directly affects the dependent. The next is empirical hypothesis, also referred to as the working hypothesis. An empirical hypothesis claims a theory's validation via experiments and observation. This way, the statement appears justifiable and different from a wild guess. The next is statistical hypothesis. The point of a statistical hypothesis is to test an already existing hypothesis by studying a population sample. The next is a quick tips on how to write a hypothesis. The first one is be clear about your research question. A hypothesis should instantly address the research question or the problem statement. Understand the constraints of your undertaken research topic and then formulate a simple and topic-centric problem. Only after that you can develop a hypothesis and further test for evidence. The second step is carry out a recce. Once you have your research foundation laid out, it would be best to conduct preliminary research. Go through previous theories, academic papers, data, and experiments before you start curating your research hypothesis. It will give you an idea of your hypothesis viability or originality. The third step is create a three-dimensional hypothesis. Variables are an essential part of any reasonable hypothesis, so identify your independent and dependent variables and form a correlation between them. The ideal way to do this is to write the hypothetical assumption in the if-then form. If you use this form, make sure that you state the predefined relationship between the variables. The next step is write the first draft. Write what you expect to find from your research. Clearly separate your independent and dependent variables and the link between them. Don't fixate on syntax at this stage. The goal is to ensure your hypothesis addresses the issue. The last step is prove your hypothesis. After preparing the first draft of your hypothesis, you need to inspect it thoroughly. It should tick all the boxes like being concise, straightforward, relevant, and accurate. Your final hypothesis has to be well structured as well.